Let me just broaden out the conversation and bring in a couple more voices. Solomon Jones, host of WURD Radio in Philadelphia and a columnist for the Philadelphia Daily News. Welcome. Also with us, CNN legal commentator Matthew Whitaker. He's an executive director of FACT, that is the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. So, gentlemen, you heard me rattle through a couple of these tweets, retweets, deletes from the president with David. Solomon, you first. How do you interpret that?
Well, I think that the tweets are interesting. I think that is where the president says what he really means. But beyond even the tweets, I think that it's about his policy. His policy says that he does not repudiate white supremacy. When you come in and make the Justice Department into the Injustice Department and you attack affirmative action with the Justice Department, you attack voting rights with the Justice Department, you attack police brutality with the Justice Department, and then, for good measure, you back it up with your own words by saying that a little police brutality is okay. And so I think that these things that affect black and brown communities, in addition to him trying to pardon Joe Arpaio, who has been someone who has been against Latinos and really has racially profiled them for years with impunity, I think all of those things really speak to where he really is on the issue of white supremacy.
Sure, and just to clean up and just being precise, police brutality, I don't think he ever said it's not okay, but I know what you're referring to in Long Island. He said it was a joke.
Bang
a lot of people
not
even think he's not joking. I know, I hear you. And so Matthew, to you, I just respond to Solomon and also I think David's point that he's undermined his attempt to clean up this controversy over the weekend. Has he in the last 24 hours?
I think he has been the Donald Trump that we sort of expect. And I know that is disappointing for many of us that don't disagree with an entire agenda, but there are things that we do disagree with. These CEOs, represent some stakeholders, including customers, the most important thing that make a business go round. And I think they're making the right decision for their own personal. And I think there is a stage on that committee for folks to interface with the administration and interface with this president. On the issue of race, this is horrible what we watched play out on Saturday, and the president's comments were woefully inadequate. And to come back, 3 days later, in the manner that he did, and putting it in the middle of a speech, we all agree, the conventional wisdom and thoughtful people all agree that the president could have done more on Charlottesville and more broadly rejecting, if white supremacists and alt-right groups are part of his base, he needs to reject that. That's not how you win elections. You win elections with people that are conservatives, people that are Republicans, and people that are independents and Democrats that believe in growing the American economy is in the best interest of all Americans.
Do you, Matthew, realize how it looked, right? He took 72 hours to outright condemn neo-Nazis and white supremacists, yet it takes the president all of 51 minutes once Ken Frazier, the CEO of Merck, a majorly successful African-American CEO, to say essentially, thanks but no thanks, you're not condemning this, so I'm out of your manufacturing council. Takes the president, less than an hour to criticize him on Twitter.
The optics on that are terrible. He should have immediately condemned the terrorist act in Charlottesville, and going after the Merck CEO, who is not only an African American but a very successful CEO who navigated that company through a very difficult time when they had the Vioxx heart challenge and had to pay billions of dollars in damages. I think that's tone deaf, and I will admit that. But at the same time, there are important pieces of this president's agenda that are separate and distinct and can't be just grouped into a simple one-sentence talking point.
Solomon, what's the incentive for, business people, successful businessmen and women to be part of these councils for the president if, they end up disagreeing with the president and end up having to walk away?
Yeah, I don't know that there is an incentive, because the bottom line, we can talk about black and white, we can talk about race, but for business people, the bottom line is green. And so if they are losing customers, if a community decides that they want to boycott them, if they are really risking their own reputation by being attached to the president, there is no incentive for them to stay. And so I was pleased to see Kenneth Frazier, who is a Philadelphia native, by the way, take the lead on this and be the first to say, no, I'm not going to stand with this president when he won't stand up against white supremacy.
What can the president do to, I guess I should say, not only just keep these CEOs on these councils, but just to keep Americans having faith in the president. I mean, can the president fully separate himself from the white supremacists who have supported him?
Oh, he has to.
I don't think he can because he's still got Steve Bannon sitting there in the White House. Steve Bannon is somebody that these people look to as their voice in the White House. So as long as he keeps Steve Bannon there, number one, I don't think that he can separate himself from it because he has it sitting right there with him in the White House.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Well, I mean, he needs to not just have the one soundbite from earlier this week, from yesterday, where he spoke out against neo-Nazis and white supremacists and those type. I mean, this is a ongoing conversation that he needs to be very clear that he does not represent them and he does not represent their interests and he does not want their support. And I think that is going to have to be a continuing dialogue from this president. And I think folks like Steve Bannon, who represent that lightning rod in the White House, he's going to have to take a serious consideration on that. I mean, that's something that, Steve Bannon has been part of the campaign and has been part of the White House. We didn't need something like Charlottesville to bring attention to that.
What about, Solomon? I was listening to our air, and there was the vice mayor of Charlottesville who was on, African-American man who was referring to President Trump as 45. And he was explaining he just cannot call him, I'm paraphrasing, but he cannot call him his president. And I've talked to, there are people in this country, obviously, who say this is not my president. But is that helpful, Solomon?
I don't know that that is helpful, but I think that that's the reality. I think that there are people in the black community, and I speak to them every day on my radio show, who feel like we have been cheated out of the presidency, who feel like this Russian investigation certainly has some legs to it, who feel like, our votes have been suppressed. You had the Justice Department coming out in favor of Ohio purging their voting rolls last year. That affected the election. And so there are a number of reasons why people don't want to call him their president. Racism, I think, is one of those things, or the perception of racism with this president. But I think the other one is his policies and the feeling that the black community and other communities of color have been cheated out of a fair election.
Let's continue this dialogue. Matthew Whitaker and Solomon Jones, thank you both so much.